Hello and welcome back to the simulated 2024 F1 World Championship. This is round number 6 of 24, taking place from Miami in the United States. It's our first trip to the States out of 3 this year, and to make things even better, it's another sprint weekend, so I get to do 2 races around one of my favourite tracks on the calendar. How great is that? I'm so looking forward to driving even more around this soulless, lifeless, bland, useless, terrible pile of misery that makes all my ulcers burst at once. Here's how the driver standings shape up after the last round at China. Yuki Tsunoda still leads the championship in the RB with 73 points, with Charles Leclerc leapfrogging Sergio Perez up into second. Hamilton occupies P4 with Verstappen not too far behind in 5th. Alex Albon is outperforming his Williams in 6th, with Stroll and Sainz tied for 7th with 33 points. Alonso follows the pair of them in 9th, with Lando Norris wrapping up the top 10. As for the constructors, Red Bull are still on top with 100 points, with Ferrari and RB close together in 2nd and 3rd respectively. Mercedes occupy 4th, with Aston Martin and McLaren following up in 5th and 6th. Albon's points tally sees Williams in 7th, with Alpine doing better than their real life counterparts in 8th. Sauber in 9th, with Haas bringing up the rear. Compared to the actual standings, Verstappen is still in 1st, big surprise, with 110 points. Perez makes it a Red Bull 1-2 at the top. We then have the 2 Ferraris of Leclerc and Sainz, followed by the 2 McLarens of Norris and Piastri. Russell slots into P7, closely followed by Alonso. Their teammates Hamilton and Stroll round up the top 10. As for the constructors, Red Bull have a stranglehold on the top with 195 points, with Ferrari and McLaren taking up P2 and P3 respectively. Mercedes and Aston Martin take up P4 and P5, with RB and Haas being the last of the point-scoring teams in P6 and P7 respectively. Williams, Alpine and Sauber are still to get on the board. Now it's time to find out who we'll be racing as for the Miami GP. Lance Stroll has been removed from the wheel, leaving 15 drivers yet to be selected. Without further ado, let's see who shall be selected this time. And the wheel decides that we'll be racing as Alex Albon in the Williams. Can I overcome my pure hatred of this track to bag Albon some more solid points? Will I even get to the end of the sprint race without having an aneurysm? It's time for the Miami Grand Prix. Alrighty, Miami Grand Prix time, and we're starting off with the sprint qualifying. Obviously, as you know, sprint first, main race later. So we go out for our first lap in SQ1. Again, best I could do is just a full qualifying session rather than a sprint qualifying session. Thanks F123. I'm sure in F124 we'll probably have the proper sprint weekend format, but for now, we make do with what we got. As I progress on my lap through SQ1, again, I'm not a fan of this track. If you listen to the intro, I'm not a fan of this track. I don't like driving it. I don't like watching it. And you can see from my lap that it's going very well, as I'm 3.5 tenths down on 16th place, which is not looking good for me right now. But maybe I can make up some time later on in the lap in sector 2 and 3. My car is more suited for the downforcey areas, but there are 2 long straights, which is probably a mistake on my part, but nonetheless, we see what happens as we head into this awful chicane part here. You can see we cut the corner. Get away with a warning, I'd probably get my lap time deleted if that was real life, but I made up 2 tenths because of it. Don't mind me though, it's fine. Just, you know, I deal with the hand I'm dealt, and we carry on with the lap as we go into the final braking zone here through the, I guess that is a hairpin. Going to the line, we're going to see where we end up after SQ1. Hugging the inside wall there to try and cut as much time as possible, but it's not good enough. I'm only 19th. Only 19th in sprint qualifying, which means I am out in the first part of sprint qualifying, along with Kevin Magnussen, Valtteri Bottas, Logan Sargent, I got out-qualified by my teammate, how embarrassing, and Nico Hulkenberg, who spares my blushes of being in last, so go me. But yeah, I'm out in SQ1, which means no more qualifying from me, which means it's time for the Miami Grand Prix Sprint.
So it is all about speed in today's sprint. Not very many laps and no chance to get ahead on strategy. Who here today has the raw skill to take them to the top? Run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting sprint. An immense lap from Fernando Alonso yesterday puts him on pole position, and Lewis Hamilton completes the front row. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Russell, Leclerc, Norris, Tsunoda, Verstappen, Zhou, Gasly, Sainz, Ocon, Oscar Piastri, Perez, Ricciardo, Stroll, Magnussen, Bottas, Sargent, Albon, and Nico Hulkenberg rounds off the grid. Which of these drivers will get pole position today? We will soon find out.
Again, I don't really know why it's quiet for the sprint race intros, but nonetheless, we're on the grid here for the sprint. We've got about 19 laps ahead of us. In fact, we do have 19 laps ahead of us, not even around. It is exactly that amount. I bumped up my fuel a little bit because I don't know what my fuel efficiency is going to be like here. Nonetheless, we're going to start on softs along with everyone else, apart from Hamilton, Zhou, and Gasly, who decided to go on the mediums for this sprint. Bit of an interesting choice from them freak, especially considering Hamilton's in P2 on the grid. But yeah, we have Alonso at the front, who got the sprint pole. Very good on him. But we are down in P19 as we get an amazing camera angle here of wheel. I do not have wheel knowledge, that's not me, but nonetheless, we are starting from P19. We can barely see Albon's helmet poke over the top, which is pretty funny. But hey, at least the steering wheel is correct because they moved to having the dash on the wheel now. They were like the last team to change. Beforehand, they had the monitor on the chassis, on the actual on the chassis of the car. So they've conformed to everyone else. But nonetheless, we move up to the grid here, starting from P19. Hopefully, we could do a good job in the sprint and maybe get a few points if we get some overtaking done. As we move to 5 red lights. And it's lights out and away we go for the sprint. 19 laps. We make a good start. We're already past our teammate before even going into turn 1. Even past Bottas. Although we do have to kind of be careful here because we've got cars around that outside, including Stroll and Bottas. Someone actually shows me off the track there, and that gives me a illegal overtake warning on Stroll, which is kind of annoying considering I got shoved off the track. So overall, I've only made up 1 place from the start, but that is on our teammate. Hopefully we can make up some more positions as we move through the sprint. Unfortunately though, my setup is not amazing and my straight line deficit is apparent. Even on lap 1, without the DRS being open, as Sargent has a little sniff about taking the position back from me, but I do defend, and Sargent is not brave enough to go on the brakes. But I kind of got on the brakes going into the left-hander and actually overtake Stroll. I brake very late. I realised he was braking very early, so I decided to do a little dive down the inside, and it worked out in the end. As I move up to P17, following this train of cars through this very clumsy chicane section. Moving on to one of the back straights here. I'm right behind Valtteri Bottas, trying to get some slipstream, but there's no DRS obviously until lap 3. even though technically in this year it should be lap 2, but again, limitations of the game will do that. As we make a move down the inside, getting past both Magnussen and Bottas on the last braking zone of lap 1, moving us up to P15 at the end of the first lap. We've made up 4 positions on the first lap, and hopefully we can make up more as we move through the sprint. And here we are on lap 2 actually, same place as before. We're right behind Daniel Ricciardo in the Cash Money team as we slipstreaming down the straight. Again, my straight line speed not really helping here, but hopefully I can go a little bit late on the brakes going into the last corner, maybe? Yes, I do. I brake late and also catch out Sergio Perez as well, making 2 overtakes on the same corner as we move up to P13. Perez braking very early there. I saw the opportunity and I made it work. As we move on to lap 3 now. Lap 3, we're up to P13. Remember, only the top 8 get points in the sprint, so that's what we're aiming for currently. As we see Verstappen and Hamilton battling it out for Russell and Verstappen, sorry, not Hamilton and Verstappen, it's Russell and Verstappen. But Verstappen and Russell battling out for P3, Verstappen making the move done, going into the 5th lap, and he doesn't even need to stay on the inside going into turn 1, he has the move done, and Verstappen is up to P3. Now ahead of both the Mercedes. Hamilton actually losing out at the start there as we see Stroll, who is down in P18. His teammate's currently leading the race, which is kind of embarrassing for him. And even more embarrassing, he spins it on the final corner. He's our first spinner of the day, maybe our own spinner of the day, but Stroll really not having a good time in F1 right now, in real life and in the game, as he moves down to last place thanks to his clumsy error, unforced error going into the last braking zone of the lap. Very embarrassing. So we now have an Aston Martin in first and an Aston Martin in last. The whole grid is sandwiched by Aston Martins. Very British, even though the team's mostly owned by a Canadian. As we move on to the end of lap 8 here, going on to lap 9, we're right behind Pierre Gasly, and we get a good run coming out the last corner actually, going into lap number 9, and we decide to make our move, braking late, going down the inside. Gasly has no recourse for it, and we're up to P12. Next on the track is Oscar Piastri in the McLaren. Hopefully we'll move up close to him as the sprint race goes on. As we see Nico Hülkenberg in 19th, coming to a stop. He's slowing down. Looks like we got our first retirement of the sprint race. Hülkenberg with an engine issue, moving very slowly. He could have gone in the pits. He didn't. Nearly crashes in the Stroll there, weirdly, going down the main straight. But nonetheless, Hülkenberg in the Haas is our first retirement of the sprint race. He did start P20, so he didn't really have a good time in the sprint. Hopefully, the main race proves to be better for him. We shall see, chat. But why did I say chat? I got the Twitch thing on the brain. Why did I say that? Whatever. I've been streaming too much lately. As we move on to lap 10, we're right behind Oscar Piastri. We actually make the dive into the last corner, seeing how he broke early. We catch Piastri out. We move up to P11. We're only 3 places away from the points. As we see Ocon in front of us moving into lap 11. We actually move forward now to lap 13. We're right behind this train. I can't see us at the front of the train. I think it's actually Hamilton in front of the train here. Or it might be Sainz. I think it's Sainz actually at the front of this train. As we're right behind Ocon. Slipstreaming all the while. But, you know, with some late braking, hopefully we can make the move stick. We actually make the move stick going around the outside of the corner. Braking very late, and we're into the top 10. But again, only the top 8 get points in the sprint, so we've got to move up a few more places before we consider point-paying positions. As we see Alonso out front, who's basically been unchallenged this entire sprint race. Sprint pole, sprint win looking very likely for him as he moves on with lap 14 of the sprint race. Leclerc 3.5 seconds behind, and Russell 5.5 seconds behind Leclerc. So not much challenge for the front places. As we move back down the field, also on that 14, we actually get a good run coming out the corner, out the tricky chicane section. But as you can see, my straight line deficit not doing me any good against Zhou. So all I can rely on is a late lunge down into the last corner maybe, and Yes, we make it work. We do tap signs a little bit going out of the corner, but it's okay. No damage done for the pair of us. We do make a little bit of a slip up though out of that corner as we move on to lap 15, giving Joe another chance to overtake us back, but we do defend the position. And we keep P9. So we see Verstappen battling away with Hamilton now. Verstappen was battling Russell earlier, but has now kind of slipped back and is now battling Hamilton as he makes the move around the outside there, going into the chicane section. Very good move there from Max as he moves out to P4 with Tsunoda, Norris right behind them as well. As we move on to lap 16, I died on the inside sides. I misjudged the corner and I accidentally hit the back of Norris and lose a bit of my front wing with 3 laps to go. I decide, sod it, we're going to roll with it. I'm going to dive down the inside of Norris going into turn 1. And I am now up to P7, but I now have a aerodynamic disadvantage going into the last 3 laps. So defending this position is going to be rough. As we see Alonso pretty much unchallenged throughout the whole sprint. He wins the sprint by a comfortable margin, 6.1 seconds ahead of Leclerc. Very easy for him. But down the field, we still got our own battles to fight. We're still in P7. We managed to hold on to P7 for now. And in fact, we are kind of closing in on the gap of Russell, Verstappen, and Tsunoda. With Tsunoda actually, we see them go 3 wide around this freaking corner here. And seeing them battle each other, I decided to take the opportunity and I make probably the most disgusting move of all time. Going into the chicane. I actually overtake both Russell and Tsunoda. That overtake was absolutely not on, but somehow I make it work. 3 wide going into that tricky chicane section. I actually make it work and end up in P5. But I am battling away with Russell here. Russell trying to get back at me with Tsunoda right behind him as well. I cover the inside off going into the last braking zone. Russell tries getting me back, but I kind of hold him off just barely. And in the end, we finish the sprint in P5. Absolutely undeserved. But we made it work. P5, we get 4 points from the sprint, starting from P19, which was very impressive, but some of those overtakes, man, were very, very dodgy. I will admit that myself. But nonetheless, Fernando Alonso wins the sprint with Charles Leclerc in P2. Hamilton ends up in P3 with Max Verstappen P4, Albon in P5, Russell P6, Tsunoda in P7, and Carlos Sainz is the last of the points finishes in the sprint in 8th. As for the rest of the finishers, we have Lando Norris in 9th, Zhou Guanyu in 10th, then we got the 2 Alpines of Ocon and Gasly in 11th and 12th, Oscar Piastri moving down 1 position from where he started in 13th, same with Perez, finishing 14th after starting 13th in the sprint. Not very good from him considering he's in P3 in the championship right now. We have Daniel Ricciardo in 15th position. Valtteri Bottas in P16. Kevin Magnussen in P17. Not a good sprint for Haas. Logan Sargent in 18th. And Lance Stroll is the last of the sprint finishers in 19th. With 1 DNF being Nico Hülkenberg. And yes, I survived the sprint, but now I've got the main course coming up, which is fun. So, without further ado, let's move on to the Miami Grand Prix qualifying. Alright, it's qualifying take 2. This time for the main race. We're setting the grid for the main race, which is 56, 57 laps. I can't remember exactly how many laps. Let's see if we do any better in this qualifying than we did in the sprint qualifying as we start our lap in Q1 going into turn 1. Looking pretty good. Not too bad. Going through this very tricky chicane bit here as well. I don't know what it is with this circuit and tricky chicanes. Here comes another one, in fact, as we move towards the end of Sector 1. And it looks a lot better than we did in the first qualifying, to be fair. We do actually hit the apexes, apart from there, but we didn't miss the apex by that much. But we are still two temps down, nearly 3 temps down on P16, which is Lance Stroll currently. So, Not looking good for us here at the moment, but the thing is, I feel like this lap is the best I could do. I've never been good at this circuit, so in the end I can only deal with the hand I've dealt. This track not one of my strong types as I go for this tricky chicane bit there. Not the best way to go around that section of track, and I actually go very wide coming out of that corner as I actually lose about half a tenth there. I'm now 3 tenths down on Lance Stroll, so it's not looking very good for me to get out of Q1 again. Question is, can I save my embarrassment and not qualify in last this time? I mean, I didn't qualify in last time, but we'll see as we go through the final braking zone, through the final couple of corners to the line. Once again, hugging the inside, making up as much time as I can. And in the end, I did end up qualifying last. I am P20 for the main race in Miami, unfortunately. We also lost Lance Stroll, Kevin Magnussen, Nico Hulkenberg, and Logan Sargent. So both the Williams, both the Hasses, and the Aston Martin of Stroll are out in Q1. And yeah, that's our qualifying done again. So now we move on to the Miami Grand Prix itself.
Welcome to the Magic City. We are here at Miami International Autodrome, the home of the Hard Rock Stadium. It's a multi-purpose sports and entertainment hub which has hosted Super Bowls, Baseball World Series, numerous rock concerts, and now Formula One. Well, it's certainly not sunny here in the Sunshine State. A lap of the Miami Grand Prix features 19 corners and 3.36 miles of track around Hard Rock Stadium. These conditions should prove especially difficult for our drivers today. So with the race not far away from starting, here's what today's grid rundown looks like. Fernando Alonso lines up on pole position, and it's Charles Leclerc in P2. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Verstappen, Norris, Russell, Sainz, Tsunoda, Gasly, Ricciardo, Perez, Hamilton, Joe, Oscar Piastri, Ocon, Bottas, Stroll, Magnussen, Hulkenberg, Sargent, and Alex Albon picks up the last spot on the grid. And with preparations almost complete, let's head down to the track. Anthony Davidson joins us in commentary for this one, and the main focus is right in front of us. It's a wet race. How does that affect your planning as a driver?
It is a touch damp, isn't it? Well, as a driver, there are 3 big things to worry about when racing in these kind of conditions: standing water, tyre temperature, and visibility. Judging distance to the cars around you is really tricky when you're driving through the vast amounts of spray that these wet weather Pirelli tyres kick up.
This is not a drill, it's a wet race here at Miami. At least it's starting off wet. It looks like it's going to dry up later, but we are starting on the full wet tyres here at Miami, which gives us quite a few options actually, considering our car is more set up for downforce than anything else. So this might give us the advantage at least at the start of the race, as I move my fuel load down actually, considering I'm going to be using less fuel because of the weather. But again, we have Alonso on P1 on pole. Alonso carrying on with his domination this weekend. As for us, we're starting on the opposite end of the grid in P20. But as we saw, we did make up a lot of places in the sprint. Hopefully we can make up a lot of places in the main race as well. Overtaking is possible around here. So yeah, we're going to give it a try. Obviously, everyone's starting on the full wets, considering the weather. And yes, hopefully our setup does work well in the wet, and we can make up a few places during the time where it is pouring down with rain. I would like for it to pour down with rain for the entirety of the race, because that would give us a very big advantage. But looking at the forecast, it does look like it's going to dry up. So we're going to have a half wet, half dry race, it looks like, which could be very exciting indeed. As we move onto the grid here, taking our place in P20 and last. Very embarrassing for me, I know, but hopefully I can make up for it in the race. We shall see. As we line up on our grid slots, and we get ready for those 5 red lights once again. 57 laps for the Miami Grand Prix. And it's lights out and away we go. Everyone tentatively getting off the line there, including myself. But as I go up the gears, I gain more confidence. I go down the inside going into turn 1. I go very bold actually going into turn 1, but I avoid collisions from the other cars. I have Ocon to the left of me. I tried to give him some space, and I do give him the space. We move up to P14 actually, but we still have Ocon to the left of us, so that might become P15. He actually has the inside going into the corner, but we brake a little bit later. We still keep it on the track, and we do move up to P14. We made up 6 places within the first sector alone. Much, much better than what we did in the sprint, and we still got more places to move up potentially, as we're right on the back of Zhou Guanyu here. Going down the back straight. Hamilton just ahead of them in P12, not doing very well in the main race compared to the sprint, but hopefully he can make up a few positions as well. As we move to the end of the straight here and see whether we can make up a few moves going into the corner. And we actually do. We move up in front of Zhou Guanyu. And we also move ahead of Hamilton as well. 2 places made up at the end of the straight. We're back up to P12. Hamilton's still fighting it, but we cover him off. And I kind of get caught out by everyone being very slow here. And in fact, I end up accidentally moving in front of Piastri going into the chicane as well. So we move up to P11. With me really not expecting everyone to be so slow. In fact, the yellow flags came out, it was that slow. But nonetheless, we've gone from P20 to P11 in 1 lap, which is very incredible. And we still got 1 corner left, so I could try something into the last corner potentially. I do not though, I'm way too far behind Perez for that. But we do move up from P20 to P11 by the end of lap 1. So the wet weather conditions very much working out in our favour. And hopefully we can make up a few positions moving forward as we see ourselves right on the back of Sergio Perez again. At the end of lap 3, moving into lap 4, we do get a good run coming out the corner. We are still a bit behind, but using the battery a little bit. We move a little bit closer to Perez, move alongside and going into turn 1. Brake a little bit late. We send ourselves down the inside of Perez, and we're now into the top 10 on lap 4. Remember, we did start in last. This weather really working out in our favour. At least for now. Later on, it might not work out in our favour that much as we move on to lap 5. And I decided to make the call to box at the end of lap 5 for intermediates because I see the track is actually... well, the rain is getting lighter. So I figured now would be a good time to go in for intermediates. I'm actually the first to make the call as I move into the pit lane here. I'm the first to make the call to go onto the intermediate, so I am taking a bit of a risk. But I did start in last. I know we made up a lot of positions, but I feel like we won't make up many more positions unless we take a little bit of risk. As we come into our box, get the intermediates on. I missed the clutch release. Oops. But we're on our way. We're back in last again. But we'll see whether this call ends up being the right call or not. As we move on to lap 6. Coming out the pit lane. I now have to wonder whether when everyone else will pit in for intermediates. Because everyone else will, considering the rain is getting lighter by the minute. And sure enough, at the end of lap 7 going into lap 8, Alonso, Leclerc, basically all the front runners, apart from Norris who's decided to carry on. All the front runners are coming in for their intermediate tyre runs. And as you can see, we're already ahead of Hulkenberg, who made his pit stop the lap before. And I can imagine with everyone making their pit stops for intermediate tyres, we're going to make up a lot of positions here. Question is, how many positions will we make up? Remember, we were in 10th before the whole, before we came in for our pit stop. And yeah, you can see we've moved up now to P6. And we're actually battling Verstappen coming out of the pit lane here. And with our tyres being more warmed up than his, we actually go past him. We actually move up from P10 to P6 thanks to our early call for intermediates. And with more people pitting in front of us, it actually becomes P5 as we move on to lap 12 here. So we actually moved up from P10 to P5, but Verstappen coming back at us down the inside. I try to hang around the outside. I get the inside going into the next corner, the long right-hander, which allows us to keep, allows me to keep the position. But I am starting to form a bit of a train here. Unfortunately, haven't made any progress towards the top 4. Alonso's still in the lead, but Leclerc is right behind him. But yeah, unfortunately, haven't been able to make much progress up the field as we see Daniel Ricciardo at the end of lap 12 here. Making a move, but no, he pulls off to the side. It looks like he has an issue with his engine. It looks like Ricciardo is going to be the first retirement of the race in the V-Carb. Unfortunate for him. I mean, he was only down in like 12th, 13th, 14th, but nonetheless, I'm sure he'll be disappointed that his race has ended so early. Daniel Ricciardo is the first retirement of the Miami Grand Prix. Very unfortunate for him and the team, especially considering their strong constructors position right now. As we see Alonso up front here on lap 15. He got Charles Leclerc right behind him, so we got a bit of a battle here for P1 in the race. But Alonso doing everything he needs to do so far to make this effectively a grand slam for him here at Miami. He's doing absolutely perfectly near on. He is actually having an amazing time as we see Stroll making a move on Perez here, going around the outside, going into the left hand at the end of sector 2. And he manages to stick around the outside, which gives him the inside going around the long right-hander, and he makes the move stick. And Stroll is up to P13, doing marginally better than he did in the sprint, but he's still not in the points considering his teammate is leading the race. Stroll probably should be doing better than this, but nonetheless, he does make the move against a Red Bull of all cars, so or credit to where it's due, I guess. As we move on to the end of lap 22, I decide to make the call to go onto the dry tyres, along with everyone behind me, actually. So this is going to be a very interesting pit stop race now, with about 6 cars coming into the pits at the same time. Question is, who's going to come out in front out of all the cars pitting? We shall see. As we move from intermediates to the hard tyres, I decide to go onto the hard tyres till the end of the race. Everyone else making their own calls. Everyone going, a lot of people going on the softs. Some people going on the hards as well. Very mixed strategies here. But I'm deciding I'm going to play the long game rather than go for another pit stop later. This will put us at a bit of disadvantage initially, but again, hopefully we can hold on to P5. Everyone else's tyres run out. And hopefully, yes, we can make the moves. Well, hopefully we can keep this position as we see Verstappen trying to go around the outside of us at the last braking zone. We do hold him off there. But he will have DRS going to the first corner, so we had to protect from him again. We go down the inside. He tries braking late. And he manages to stick around the outside and actually makes the position stick. But we do have a better run coming out the first corner because of, well, where we were positioned. So we move down the inside, going into this tricky chicane section here. And we brake a little bit later than him, causing him to go on the outside and causing us to keep the position. Very good from us there. Very good, solid racing. And yes, we do hold on to P5 for the time being, but we are in another DRS zone, which gives Verstappen another opportunity for him to make another move going into the left-hander at the end there. But also, Yuki Tsunoda as well, just behind him, senses the opportunity, tries to go around the outside on the left-hand corner, manages to get more traction coming out the corner, which gives him the inside on the right-hander. And yes, Verstappen has to relinquish the position. Tsunoda moving up to P6 on the road. Very good move there from the current World Drivers' Championship leader. As we see Leclerc and Russell battling out for P2 now. Alonso's kind of checked out the front. Leclerc's kind of fallen behind. But he does get ahead of Russell again, moving up to P2. We got Norris in P4 as well. And yeah, we are 21 seconds behind Norris in P5, so you can see how much pace we have around this track. But nonetheless, we are moving on as we see Ocon spin out the chicane. Very clumsy move there from the French driver in the French team. And he also decides to tap Bottas as well, trying to get back on the track. And he's also causing a bit of a traffic jam. Sargent actually crashing into the back of Magnussen there. But he does go around Magnussen actually and makes the move up to P17. I'm not sure that's a legal move, considering the yellow flags were out, but it seems like he's holding on to the position, so I don't know what's happening there. As we move on to lap 38, we now have Hamilton just behind us, with Verstappen pitting in for another set of tyres. I'm sure he's going to go into the end of those tyres, but now we're fighting off the Mercedes Lewis Hamilton, who's going down the inside into freaking turn, whatever it is, it's the last braking zone. And he actually makes the move stick, but he kind of slows down because he wants to go to the pits, but he crashes into Zhou, who's trying to just go around the outside of him. And very clumsy move there from Hamilton as he tries to go into the pits, and now Zhou is left with half the front wing as the virtual safety car is deployed. Very interesting stuff there from Hamilton, who just wanted to go in the pits but did not see Zhou coming around the outside. Very clumsy there from the Mercedes driver. Very clumsy.
Right, drop your speed. Our delta's too low, and we're going to risk.
And yeah, the VSC already ending. Not a very long-lasting virtual safety car, but nonetheless, Hamilton in trouble. Zhou in trouble now. Zhou will have to pit in for another front wing. Very unfortunate for him, considering he was doing very well. As we move on to lap 41, we got Sainz now. Try to attack me. I kind of push him a little bit there, but I do give him enough room. He goes down the inside, but I brake a little bit later, going into the last braking zone, trying to hang around the outside, but I can't. But I give myself more traction coming out the corner, and hopefully I'll get DRS going into turn 1 as well. I do. And yeah, with the extra traction and the DRS, I go down the inside of Sainz, and I take back the position going into lap 42. So we keep hold of P5 for now. We got Verstappen closing in on us as well. I'm sure he's coming back into the fold eventually. As we see Alonso now moving up on Lando Norris. Lando Norris on the hard tyres, trying to go to the end of the race. Alonso on much fresher tyres goes around the outside of him easily in the last corner. And with fresher tyres, it looks like he's ready to check out and complete the Grand Slam for this Miami Grand Prix simulation, which is very wild. As we see 3 wide going into the left-hander here. And Stroll actually nearly makes the double overtake stick, but we just hold him off. However, Stroll and Verstappen nearly going side by side going into the chicane. Verstappen backs out of it. Very wise of him to do that. Stroll actually makes up a position and moves up to P6 ahead of Verstappen. Speaking of Red Bull, his teammate Sergio Perez is definitely not having a very good race. I sense he's had damage the whole way through the race. But he's currently in P19, 25 seconds behind P18, which is very much a shame. As we see the battle between Stroll and Verstappen again, they actually do go side by side going into the chicane. And very clumsily, Stroll actually lifts himself over the curb, bringing him out of shape. And Verstappen actually makes the move stick in the chicane and moves back up to P6. However, Stroll does get a lot more traction coming out in the corner. He also gets DRS, which allows him to blast by Verstappen again. And Stroll is now up to P6 once again. So a clumsy maneuver, but lucked out for Stroll in the end, as we see Russell now in P2, who overtook both Norris and Leclerc. But Russell seems to be coming to slow down. Yes, there's a puff of smoke coming out of his engine. Russell looking like he's going to be the second retirement of the Miami Grand Prix. Very much a shame for him, considering he was running in second position and looked like he was going to be very comfortable in P2. But unfortunately for him, that's it. His Miami Grand Prix ends 5 laps from the finish. Very unfortunate for him. He was looking on for such a good result, but the Mercedes engine has let him down. Very sad for him. As we move on to the last lap now, Alonso, very comfortable, half a minute ahead of Leclerc in P2, wins the Miami Grand Prix and completes the Grand Slam. I don't even know if he has the fastest lap. He might not actually, so that might not be the Grand Slam, but he's won pretty much everything. He got sprint pole, he got the sprint win, he got the main qualifying pole, and now he's won the race. A lot of points for him and the Aston Martin team. As we see Leclerc and Norris. Norris could have made a move on the inside there, could have stole second from Leclerc at the death, but decides better of it. Leclerc comes home in P2 and Norris in P3. Good podiums there for Ferrari and McLaren. I'm sure they'll be very happy with that, as we see ourselves in P4 now because of Russell's retirement. We're still holding off everyone behind us, including Hamilton, Verstappen and Piastri. In fact, we got a long train going from us down to Ocon, funnily enough. So all these positions could change at the death here. As we go down the back straight for the final time, we're going to try and cover off Hamilton. Hamilton going down the outside. We kind of squeeze him a little bit, but Hamilton gets back in front of us. But we dive down the outside going into the last corner. We push him out wide, which gives Verstappen a chance for him to go to overtake him to the line. And once again, we have Verstappen and Hamilton neck and neck over the line. And once again, Hamilton just beats Verstappen to the line. It's the same as the Chinese Grand Prix sprint. Them two cannot They cannot finish normally, can they? And again, this is how close it was between the pair of them. Incredible stuff. But in the end, we did finish P4. Hamilton just finished his P5. And yeah, that's the Miami Grand Prix done and dusted.
Here we are then, a phenomenal Miami Grand Prix. And what a great show of skill from our race winners today. Tell me, Ant, how did they manage to achieve this win?
Well, time management probably played quite a large role in the outcome of this one. As ever, it's not just about speed, it's all about maintaining that speed consistently over a stint, over a race distance. So being able to keep up the lap times while still being smooth on the controls and gentle on the tyres, that's really where the race was won today.
The Aston Martin team will be very happy with today's performance and the final result. Another display of excellent driving and excellent teamwork, and a well-deserved first-place finish.
I don't know where the sudden rain shower come from, but apparently it's raining again in Miami. But yes, Alonso does take the victory, very dominant victory, in fact, from Charles Leclerc and Lando Norris. We ended up P4 in the end, probably didn't deserve P4, but in the end, we got given our chances and we took them. So we got a nice, healthy amount of points for Williams there. Very good stuff. Very, very good. And yeah, that ending between Hamilton and Verstappen, once again, them two cannot finish properly. They always have to finish side by side if they're near each other on the track. But yes, Fernando Alonso does take P1, did not get the fastest lap, but so he does not get the Grand Slam, but I'm sure he doesn't mind that. Charles Leclerc in P2, Lando Norris rounds up the podium places, Alex Albon P4, Hamilton in P5, who did get the fastest lap, so he gets an extra point. Max Verstappen in P6. The gap between them was 21 thousandths of a second. Incredible stuff. Piastri in P7, a very good showing for McLaren there. P3 and P7. Lance Stroll actually getting more points in P8. He actually did make up a lot of positions, so very good for him. Pierre Gasly gets a couple of points at Alpine, and Nico Hülkenberg actually went from P18 and ends up P10, grabbing a point for Haas. As for the rest of the finishers, we have Zhou Guanyu in 11th, Carlos Sainz in 12th, Yuki Tsunoda in P13, Bottas in P14, Kevin Magnussen in 15th, Ocon in 16th, Logan Sargent 17th, and Sergio Perez having a very, very dismal race. It's the last of the classified finishes in 18th. And we had two retirements, which were George Russell and Daniel Ricciardo. And there we go, that is the Miami Grand Prix done and dusted. Next race is in 2 weeks' time. It's the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix around Imola. Hopefully it will actually take place this year. It got rained out last year. There was a lot of flooding that happened, but hopefully that won't happen this year. We'll get to race around Imola again. But even if the rain gods decide not to do it IRL this year again, we'll still do the simulated race because we are obligated to. So yeah, the European season starts with the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix in 2 weeks' time. Very good. As for the standings, we actually have Charles Leclerc leading the way now on 78 points, taking away the lead from Yuki Tsunoda, who didn't score anything in the main race. He actually kind of fell off at the end there due to some engine troubles. Hamilton moves up to P3 with Alonso shooting up to P4 thanks to a lot of points he gained today. Max Verstappen remains in P5 with Sergio Perez moving all the way down to P6. He did not have a good time and is actually only 1 point ahead of Alex Albon, who remains in 7th. Lando Norris moves up to 8th, Lance Stroll is in 9th, and Carlos Sainz rounds up the top 10 with 34 points. As for the constructors, Red Bull still lead the way, but only by 1 point from Ferrari, 113 to 112 points. Aston Martin actually kind of move up into the championship fight now with 101 points. Same with Mercedes. Mercedes only 17 points behind the leaders. RB moved down to 5th after a bit of a disappointing showing from them today. McLaren moved down to 6th with 73 points. Williams remain in 7th thanks to Alex Albon with 51 points. Alpine in 8th with 20 points. Sauber remain in 9th with 16 points, and Haas, despite getting a point in the main race, remain in last with 15 points. And there we go, Miami Grand Prix done and dusted. Thank God I don't have to drive around this track until next year. If I do it next year, I don't even know yet. I'll probably decide later on in the year. But Yeah, Miami Grand Prix done. Unfortunately, there is the Monaco Grand Prix looming ahead in the distance. It's the one after the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. But I don't have to worry about that now. All I have to worry about is the Imola race in 2 weeks' time. It is a normal weekend, not a sprint weekend, so at least I only got one race around there. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, give me a like, give me a subscribe. There'll be videos for every single race this year, so make sure to watch all of them. Look at the playlist as well. Watch all the other races if you haven't yet. Some of them are bangers, especially compared to the season we've had IRL. And yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this race, and I'll see you for the next one.